Welcome to Carolina Breast Friends YouTube channel. I would like to introduce professional trained chef Dee Iraka. She is a licensed registered dietitian nutritionist. Say that 10 times fast. And she's also the founder of Eat Well Chef. Her specialty is in cooking classes. Dee is a breast cancer survivor herself. She was diagnosed in 2021 and underwent a lumpectomy and radiation in 2022. She has made it a priority to help support others undergoing breast cancer treatment and help survivors thrive. And with that, I will turn it over to Chef Dee.
Well, thank you, Ashley. That was wonderful. So I had a lot of that stuff on my slides here. Let me make sure they work. So this is pretty much a summary of what Ashley just said. But, I guess before I go into that, I'll just skip that slide when I get to it. Just real quickly, I want to kind of set the foundation for today. First off, I'm always excited to talk about nutrition and food. It's my passion. I love it. And I particularly love helping women and women who have undergone breast cancer. And so this is an amazing forum for me. And I think if there's no better time than the beginning of the year, kind of after we've gone through the holidays, it's been super hectic. Some of us, like me and others, probably overate a little bit at times and maybe didn't get in our normal kind of routine of activities or workouts or things. And now it's the new year, it's 2024, and it's a perfect time to kind of reset. So what I'm going to share with you today, probably 90% of it is stuff that you probably already know. None of it's rocket science, none of it's the nitty gritty about nutrition. It's really about kind of helping you set your intentions and helping you figure out the best way that is going to work for you to be able to eat healthfully this year and going forward. So on that, I want to do a quick step back. This is what I call kind of a wellness wheel. Sometimes you'll see it as wellness pillars. There's lots of different versions. If you just Google health and wellness pillars, you might see different images online. This is kind of one that I use. And the reason why I want to kind of take a step back is because our wellness is comprised of not just nutrition. Even though I'd love to just talk about nutrition all day long and nothing else, our wellness really hinges on other areas as well. So I just want to kind of touch upon those briefly. So movement is really activity. And I think in our culture, we oftentimes hear movement and we automatically think that we're supposed to be at the gym lifting weights. And that is really far from the truth, in my opinion. Movement is a new word, or I should say a word that's being used more frequently kind of in the health and wellness space. And that's because you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to join a spin class to do movement. You can park further away from the grocery store entrance and get a little bit more walking. You can walk up the stairs at your workplace and do the 3 flights of stairs instead of taking the elevator. You can do movement in your house by standing up and cooking for an hour. That's movement. You're not sitting on the sofa. You're in your kitchen moving around. So movement is so incredibly important. Sleep, I think most of us know, getting the number of hours of sleep that our body needs every single night is so critical, but it's also the quality of sleep. And I think that's one of the things that sometimes we're in the bed, 11 o'clock until 7 o'clock. Oh, I get 8 hours of sleep. But are we getting quality sleep? So that's definitely another area to focus on in terms of overall wellness. Mindfulness is something that I think in the last 2 to 3 years, it's really become prevalent in the health and wellness space, that mindfulness is kind of your ability to stop and really be present in the moment, not just in a yoga class, but really with everything that you do, making choices that are mindful, deciding I'm going to eat this versus that, deciding I'm going to go for a walk instead of go to the gym because I'm just a little bit fatigued today, making those choices and sticking by them and really, having the wherewithal to know that you have made that mindful choice. Stress management, I don't think I have to talk too much about that. I think we all experience stress. What's most important in wellness is how we deal with it. And that's something that I think we're always all striving to do better with. And then the last one, sometimes people get a little surprised by, is community. And that's what I love about Carolina Breast Friends and so many other forums, is that it's an opportunity for all of us to get together as a community. And that's so important when you think about having somebody to interact with, having somebody maybe to talk with or vent to, having somebody to lift your spirits up, or somebody who just enjoys doing some of the things that you like to do. So community is so important. So those are kind of the 6 wellness categories or pillars that I kind of live by, and I usually talk to my clients about. But today, of course, I'm going to be focusing mostly on nutrition and eating. So I thought I might just do a quick step back about nutrition because, I think everybody generally knows what nutrition is. But I thought, it'd be interesting to kind of Google it and pull up what the definition is online. So according to Wikipedia, and I just realized I need to shrink my screen here. According to Wikipedia, nutrition is the biochemical and physiological process by which an organism uses food to support its life. Sounds like a pretty good definition. I would say in more general terms, though, when I think about nutrition is really what fuels us with energy. It also helps us to be stronger and helps us to heal faster. And I'm a huge proponent of the term food as medicine. If we can think about food as medicine, it shifts our thinking a little bit. And any of us who have gone through breast cancer treatment, who are going through breast cancer treatment, this is a term that you should become familiar with, because if you can think about the food choices that you make and know that that's going to be helping you get through your treatment, be a little stronger, or maybe even prevent breast cancer recurrence, that is huge and that is very powerful. So I want to just take a second to talk about what nutrition is not. So nutrition is not being skinny or thin. And I put that on here because I feel like in our society, that's a lot of what we talk about. We associate women who are thin, people who are thin, to be healthy. And that's really not the case. Nutrition is also not a one size fits all. And that's one of the reasons why today, I told Ashley earlier, I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of how do you count your calories? How do you figure out what kind of percentage of macronutrients you need? Because all of that depends on your age, your gender, your race, your health goals, lots of different criteria to determine that. And then also, we all have different genetics. And really what we eat can actually turn on certain genes. And that's the whole study of epigenetics. So, it's something that is not a one size fits all. And I really, think that we all should try to figure out what works for us. But in today's presentation, I'm not going to go into a lot of, deepness on nutrition. And then the last one is nutrition is not the latest trend. So I think, again, we get very overwhelmed by all of the trends, all of the social media. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But I think that's one thing that I ask for all of you to really step back and think about is that, do you get influenced by the latest trend? And if you do, it's okay if you read it and you see it, but then how do you sift through that? So I want to spend a few minutes talking about the societal influences on nutrition, because just as I mentioned, there is so much in the media. There is so much marketing. You go to the grocery store and you're inundated with packages and labels and information. And it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to me. So I imagine it's overwhelming to most people. And so I think it's interesting to stop and think about, what does society focus on versus what's really important? So one of the things I mentioned previously is being skinny or thin. I think that's something that we are shifting a little bit. If you all know or remember or have seen the Dove commercials, those are becoming kind of more diverse in the types of women and the size of women and people that are on their ads. So I think we're moving the needle slightly, but I still think that we have a really long way to go in terms of us thinking that if somebody is skinny or thin, they're automatically coined as healthy. So what's important is really being strong. And again, I think if any of you have gone through breast cancer treatment, you know that being strong, if you stop and think about going through treatment, would you rather be strong or would you rather be skinny? I think most of us would say, especially if we've gone through a type of treatment that has maybe made us lose our appetite or maybe made us really sick, sores in our mouth, those types of things where we aren't even able to eat a whole lot. Being strong is much more important than being thin. Body mass index. I think probably most of you have heard about BMI or body mass index. This is really the index or the number that many physicians use, hospitals use, dietitians use, and it's a number, meaning that it's basically an index of your height versus your weight. And in general terms, it gives us a little bit of data. But what I find about BMI that is not very accurate is that if you stop and think about a bodybuilder, somebody who has got a whole bunch of muscle mass, you think about that person being 5 foot tall and being really, really muscular, and muscle weighs more than fat. Well, that person is probably going to weigh quite a bit more than somebody like me who's 5 foot tall and not a bodybuilder. So is that person necessarily overweight or obese? Not necessarily, right? And so BMI is a good starting point. I always think of it as like, okay, it's kind of what's in front of the curtain, but you really have to pull open that curtain to really see what's behind there. And maybe there's some opportunity to be healthier, but BMI is not necessarily going to tell you that or give you that answer. So what I like to say is focus on figuring out what a healthy weight is for you. And that's different for everybody because, again, we all have different genetics. We all have different shapes. We all have, different goals. And so really figuring out what a healthy weight is what's much more important. Eating what's trendy. So every single year we have food trends. In fact, I actually watched a webinar yesterday all about the 2024 food trends. And I'm not going to go into what they are because most of them are the same as last year with a few little tweaks. But, I think that's what society focuses on. When we have a trendy food, all of a sudden that food starts to be, integrated into everybody's lives and more on the shelves and more different, more products. And, that's just because that happens doesn't necessarily mean it's healthful. And so what I would prefer for all of us to do is really think about eating a balanced diet. It's not so much what's trendy, it's about eating a balanced diet as often as we possibly can. Believing everything we read. That's something that I will touch on a little bit more in a couple minutes. But that is something that I think we as society, we think that when we see a supermodel on Instagram talking about how she lost 25 pounds in 30 days, we actually think that that happened. And I think that's something that it's always going to be difficult for us to determine what's right and wrong. But I think we all have to step back and know that not everything we see or read or hear on social media or in marketing is necessarily true. What I think is more important is really relying on research and studies. And I think if you can find somebody that says, this is something that I found from a study, and therefore I'm going to try to lose 25 pounds in 30 days, and I know it's helpful because of this research, maybe that would be something that could be a little bit more plausible. But just saying that you see something on Instagram or Facebook or any social media platform doesn't necessarily mean it's real or true. Mindless eating. So that's something that I just wanted to bring up because I think we all live in a society where we are so incredibly busy. Women, I think especially, we juggle so much, we take on so much. And I think mindless eating is something that we do because we're so busy. We're eating in our car, we're eating while we're in a meeting, we're eating while we're trying to get a presentation together. And what I think is important is if we can step back, even if it's just on the weekends or here and there, to try to do a little bit more mindful eating. Mindful eating is really saying, I've chosen this food. I'm lucky enough to have this. I'm lucky enough to be able to afford to eat this way. And I'm going to slow down and enjoy my meal. And then last is overanalyzing our food. This is something we all do on a daily basis. We're constantly, because we are bombarded with so much information, we are constantly analyzing. Well, did that dietitian tell me that this is good? Did that doctor tell me that this is good? And it can be very overwhelming. I think what's important is for us to stop overanalyzing our food and start enjoying our food. Because again, if you stop to think about how fortunate we are to even have access to food and access to fruits and vegetables and be able to throw together a meal or purchase something that's prepared that is pretty healthy, we're pretty darn lucky. And just to stop and enjoy our food is much healthier than sitting around and overanalyzing, am I doing it right? So what is healthy eating? Well, unfortunately, it's really hard to know what healthy eating is. If you talk to a different dietitian, any nutritionist, a doctor, well, they're going to have a different answer. If you see a celebrity on TV or maybe an actor or a model, they're going to have a different answer. And if you follow any social media influencers, well, they're going to tell you something different as well. It's just not easy to know what's healthy. So what I want to spend the rest of today on is kind of talking about how to really sift through the noise and how to get yourself set up so that you can make better choices. So how to sift through the noise. So one of the things that I always tell my clients is use your common sense. I think I don't know what it is. If it's we're so bombarded with so much information, but many of us, we see something and then we automatically think that it's accurate, it's true, and it's right. And sometimes we forget that we have a brain and that we can actually think, wait a second, does it make sense that somebody could lose 25 pounds in 30 days in a healthful way that's sustainable and they're going to keep that weight off? And if the answer is no, that doesn't make sense, then we should be asking ourselves that, and we should be making a decision based on our common sense and not so much on what we see. Don't believe everything you read, see, and hear. And this kind of goes back to, again, social media, marketing. Most people, or I should say most companies are marketing their product or service because they want to sell it and they want to make money. Social media influencers are kind of doing the same thing. They're selling themselves or a brand so they can make money. And it's not that there's not good, accurate information out there, because there is. But my suggestion to all of you is to not believe everything you read, see, and hear, but use that as curiosity. Let that spark your curiosity and ask the question, can this be possible? Is this right? And then go out and do your homework. Do a little research, Google it. I mean, everything's online these days, and try to discern whether that information is fact or not. Or maybe some of it's fact and some of it's not. And then you can utilize the information that is best for you. And then lastly, ask a professional. Ask a dietitian. A dietitian is somebody like me who has gone through rigorous training, who has done a lot of rotations in lots of different places. And our mission as dietitians is to help people be healthy by using evidence-based research. And that's what's very different than other nutritionists. Not that they're not good and they're not smart and they don't know what is going on. But a dietitian, that's kind of how we're trained, is to use evidence-based research. So if all else fails and you still don't know if something is real, ask a professional. Okay, just checking our time here. Okay, so the foundation of eating healthfully. Again, nothing from here on that I say is probably going to be rocket science. It's not going to be anything that you don't necessarily know. But what I'm hopeful in doing is really inspiring you to be able to maybe make a couple changes this year to eat more healthfully. So first and foremost, I say set your intentions to be healthier. If you don't set intentions, if you don't ask yourself, why do I want to eat more healthfully? Then it probably won't be sustainable. So, or any change won't be sustainable. So if you want to be healthier because you want to be a better influence on your kids, that is a great reason to be healthier. If you want to be healthier because you know that, losing some weight or, gaining more muscle is going to help prevent you from, getting breast cancer recurrence, then that's a good reason. But setting your intentions is so critical, because if you don't set those intentions and you go right into those goals, you're not going to really have that foundation, that reason, that spark to be able to have and leverage to make a change in your life. Make eating healthy a priority. This is one that I think a lot of people have a hard time with. And what I always say is, you might have to give something up. In fact, you probably will have to give something up. It's maybe time, it's maybe money, right? We might have to hire a dietitian to help us. We might have to hire a trainer because we want to build muscle and we're not that motivated ourselves, so we have to pay somebody. But it also could be time. You might have to give up watching a show every night because you have to do meal prep. And it's the reality. Unless you have $1 million set aside to pay somebody to do all these things for you, there's a good chance you're going to have to give something up and make healthy eating a priority. The other thing is figure out a good routine. I am a believer that you should become a creature of habit, meaning that if you can figure out what a good routine is, if you need to be somebody, you're a night owl and you need to pack your lunch the night before, make that a habit. You may not do it 100% of the time, but even if you do it 75% of the time, is it more than what you're doing now? And does it help you be healthier when you're at work the next day? And then last, don't expect perfection. And this is one thing that I really, really hope that you take away, is that we are not perfect people. Human beings are not perfect. I'm not perfect. People always think that I'm a perfect eater. I am far from a perfect eater, but I do strive to be healthful as much as I possibly can. And I forgive myself if I have something that isn't maybe as healthful as I want it to be. So, keeping your expectations Realistic is much better than too high, because then you know you can deliver. Okay, so here are my 7 healthful eating tips. And these are things that I talk time and time again to my clients. And these are things that even if you pick 2 of these things, and this year that's what you're going to do, it can really lead to more healthful habits. So the first is do planning. If you don't spend a little bit of time planning every single week, you will probably not be successful. There is nobody that I have met yet who has a really healthful habits and makes all these great meals without planning. Even somebody like me who thinks and breathes and lives food and nutrition every single day, I still have to stop and do planning every single week. I still have to, figure out, what do I want to eat this week? Do I want to have some plant-based meals and spend some time? It doesn't have to be a lot of time. It could be you're sitting in the car and you're driving to work and you've got a 30-minute commute. You can do planning in the car. If you need to jot down some notes, when you get to where your destination is, you jot down the notes of things that you were thinking about. So make it easy for yourself, but make it a habit to do planning every week if you can, or every other week at least, so that you have a plan for that following week or 2 weeks. Make a grocery store list. This is one that I don't think anyone knows, hasn't heard of, or doesn't do occasionally. But I am a huge proponent of making a grocery store list on my phone. I actually have a draft on my phone. And every time I think of, ooh, I don't think we have any garbanzo beans and I want some for hummus, I go on my shopping list and I add it to my list. It's always on my phone. My phone's always with me. So it works that I always have my grocery list. Be efficient in the kitchen. This one's one that I think is a little bit harder, and I think we have to train ourselves to do. When I say be efficient in the kitchen, what I mean is that let's say you're making a Asian stir fry, and you're in the kitchen, you're cutting up your carrots and your bell pepper and your onion and your garlic. That's a great time when you already have the carrots out and you already have the bell pepper to cut a few extras up, put them in a Ziploc bag, throw them in the fridge, and now you have your snack for the next day. Figure out what kind of dip you want to take with it, or maybe a piece of cheese, and now you have a snack, very helpful snack, all ready to go for the next day. So as much as you can be efficient in the kitchen, you might prep for 2 meals at one time. You already have the cutting board out. You already have your knife out. You don't need to wash it again. Prep your one meal, wipe it all off, prep your second meal, throw all that stuff in the fridge, and then later in the week, you can take that stuff out and just saute it up. You don't have to worry about cutting it up. Prep foods in advance, it's kind of what I just talked about. If you can carve out some time on a Saturday or Sunday, if you're somebody who works Monday through Friday, prep your foods in advance. It's going to make your life so much easier. You're going to feel good about it too, because you're going to say, hey, I already have everything prepped for the week. I'm starting my week off on a really good note. Buy prepared foods occasionally. I'm a huge advocate of whole foods. I'd love to think that in my life, all I eat is fruits and vegetables and whole foods. But I live in the real world, and so do you. And I know that it's not realistic to always eat whole foods. So I say buy prepared foods occasionally. Look at some of the labels. Decide, that I'm going to get a rotisserie chicken that's already made because it's going to save me an hour and a half of time. And then I'll use that rotisserie chicken for dinner tonight. And then any leftovers, I'll make a salad with chicken. You can still use prepared foods and make really healthful choices. Number 6, the 80-20 rule. This is what I live by. This is what I ask my clients to live by. We are not perfect people. I say 80-20. If 80% of the time you can really, really work hard to be healthful and have healthful habits and have healthful snacks available and go to the grocery store and do some cooking or do some prepping 80% of the time, then when it doesn't work out because you're traveling or maybe because you're going to a football game this afternoon and They don't have as many healthful foods. That's 20% of the time. And if you don't make as many healthful choices, it's okay because 80% of the time, the majority of the time, you're healthful. And then last is create some healthy snacks that you love. I'm a huge snacker. I love snacking. I think it's important for all of us to figure out what are some key important snacks that we can kind of buy every week or buy every other week and have in our fridge. So here are just a few other things that I want to talk about that can help make healthful eating simple. So one of them is striving to eat 3 meals and 2 snacks every day. If you're not somebody who maybe isn't a breakfast person, maybe have more of a snack in the morning and then have 2 meals and maybe 2 snacks in the afternoon and evening. But generally speaking, we need fuel every 3 to 4 hours. And that means if you take your whole day, you get up at 7 a.m., you go to bed at 11. If you do the math, you've got to eat every 3 to 4 hours, could be 3 meals and 2 snacks. And that way it keeps your metabolism going, because what we don't ever want to do is starve ourselves, decide that we're just not going to eat until 2 o'clock every day, because some people don't realize that actually stunts your metabolism. It actually slows it down. So if you're somebody who is trying to lose weight, who's trying to gain muscle, that's actually the opposite of what you should be doing. Eating more frequently is a better option if you want to gain muscle and lose weight. Eat whole foods as much as you can. I just mentioned that earlier, and I think as much as we can strive to eat any of those fruits and vegetables that are up on that picture, but it goes beyond that. Chicken, eggs, pork, beef, anything that is a real food. What is not a whole food are things like crackers and cookies and processed foods. And I know we hear time and time again that processed foods aren't really that healthful, but they're really not healthful. So as much as we can eat more whole foods, maybe you decide this year that you're going to come up with a snack that every single day between 2 and 4, you're going to eat that snack until you get tired of it. And then you're going to rotate to another snack and make that snack whole foods. Fruits and vegetables could be, cheese. It could be cottage cheese. And I have a list for you that I'm going to share here in a second. Add a variety of fruits and vegetables to your diet. You hear it all the time from dietitians and nutritionists, but I always think it's important to share why it's so important to have a variety of fruits and vegetables. If you're somebody who says, well, I eat vegetables, I eat broccoli once a week and I eat carrots for snack. Well, that's good, but did you know that eating a variety of fruits and vegetables actually gives you a more diverse gut microbiome? And we've all probably heard in the last couple of years how incredibly important our gut microbiome is. So if you can add in more of a variety of fruits and vegetables, you're getting more nutrition because you're getting a lot more diverse micronutrients, but you're also getting more diversity for your gut. And, you're getting water, you're getting fiber. Oh, and by the way, fruits and vegetables are generally about half or 2/3 of the calories of processed foods. So if you start thinking, wow, I could actually have more food if I eat fruits and vegetables versus some of the processed packaged foods. And then last, use a visual rather than measuring cups or scales. So I am a huge fan of these two. The one on the left here is the USDA MyPlate, and you might have seen this before. The one on the right is from Harvard. It's the Harvard Healthy Eating Plan. And you'll notice they're predominantly the same, except for the Harvard one has water and some oils, and it does say at the bottom there, stay active. So I kind of like that one a little bit better because of the stay active. But either one works. And I think what I want you to take away from this is if you can design your plate or even design your snacks in a way that half of what you're eating is fruits and vegetables, about a quarter of it is protein, and about a quarter of it is whole grains, then you're doing a pretty darn good job. And so that goes for dinner. You think about your round plate that you have for dinner, or even if it's square, and you cut it in half and you think everything on the left-hand side should be fruits and vegetables. If you don't eat fruit for dinner, that's okay. Neither do I generally. That half of the plate then should be vegetables. It could be green beans and a salad. You've got your vegetables on half the plate. So this is a great visual. If all else fails, if you think, I don't know how to be healthy, it's so confusing, you can use this visual as a really simple guide. The last thing I want to just talk about is my top 5 snacks, because I've mentioned snacks before and I think they're so important. These are some of the snacks I've designed for some of my clients. They're some of their favorites, and I just want to go through them really quickly. So an apple and a tablespoon of nut butter. This is a great one on the go. And even if I'm on the go, I might take an apple and a handful of peanuts or a handful of almonds. That way you're getting, and a handful meaning, around a tablespoon. That way you're getting some healthy fats and you're getting the apple, which is the grapefruit. The second one is celery, carrots, and hummus. So I talked about pre-cutting up your vegetables when you're making a stir fry or you're doing something else. That way you have them all cut up for the week. And then you can dip them in hummus. You could take that to work with you or have it as a snack if you work from home. You could dip it in ranch. If you're a ranch person, dip it in ranch. You're getting so many great nutrients from the celery and the carrots that I think ranch is fine. Hummus is healthier, but if you don't like hummus, ranch is a good option too. An ounce of cheese with a handful of wheat thins is a really great snack. Cottage cheese, which by the way has become one of the trendiest foods. Half a cup of cottage cheese and a quarter cup of any berries. You could even put frozen berries if you wanted. If you don't have berries, sometimes you can put and I meant to put a teaspoon, not a tablespoon, a teaspoon of jam. And then a quarter cup of nuts and a tablespoon of dried fruits. That's a great one on the go too. So you can pre-package those up in little baggies, have them for the week. Have one every day, maybe have one every other day, and then rotate out some of these other snacks for some of the other days. But these are top 5 snacks. There are obviously lots of other snack options out there, but these are the ones that my clients like the most. And then just to end, I wanted to give you a quote because this is a quote that is actually on my website, and it's one that I 100% believe in. And this is Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. That is my belief, and that's why I was so excited to be able to chat with all of you today. All right.
All right. Thank you, Chef D, so much. At this time, we will stop the recording. And if anyone has any questions, we can go there. Give me just 1 second.